we are going to do a magazine flip through. I've never really done one of these before, but I do genuinely enjoy watching these kinds of videos. So I thought I would do one for you on one of my favorite subjects. Bread. So I love to make my own bread. There's obviously lots of different kinds of bread. Even on the cover you have some sort of poppy seed dinner rolls, twist bread, muffins, sourdough, some pastries, pizza crust. So you have so many to choose from. So Better Homes and Gardens bread recipes. 65 recipes from easy to artisan. Rolls, muffins, quick breads. New ways with milk bread. Simple, no knead dough. Plus creative sourdough starter ideas. I have a sourdough starter that I actually made probably I guess this would be like 6 months that it's been alive and kicking. So that's been pretty fun. Let's take a look inside. What's inside? For bread basics, 10 breakfast in bread, 20 upper crust, 24 muffins to see here, 32 blasts from the past, 42 the milk bread formula, 48 French style, 50 on the quick, 60 more on sourdough, 70 full harvest, 76 stalemate, and 80 is the index. Artisan yeast bread, page 22. I love scoring bread. You can get some really cool patterns. So I do have a sourdough starter, which I love. I call it the Yeasty Boys because I thought it was funny. But it's a really nice strong starter that I make with bread flour. I'm to the point now where I can kind of let him hang out in my fridge when I'm not making bread. But probably a day before I want to make bread, I will take him out of the refrigerator, give him a big feed, and have him ready to go for the next day or so. I have tried actual sourdough bread several times, and I think it really turned out okay. Not to my perfect liking, as I don't actually own a Dutch oven, And that's kind of one of the best ways to do some of these breads with kind of the harder crust on them. So, but I do get a fairly good crust, just maybe not as much as I would like. So, one of these days I'll get one. I'll have to just find a place in my kitchen because I don't have a very large kitchen, even though I love cooking. So, bread recipes, do you love the magazine? So many different kinds you can choose from. So bread basics I think is really a fun thing to do. I've not actually looked through this. I bought it because it had bread on it and I thought it might make a fun video. But let's see what it says. I probably know a lot of it. Store it right. So when you make homemade bread, storing it on the counter. First day homemade bread is a work of art, perfection in flavor and texture, but unlike the products in bread aisle that stay fresh for days or weeks, thanks to preservatives, homemade bread goes downhill fast. Store in an airtight container at room temperature for no more than 3 days. But in all honesty, you may notice textural differences after storing for even 1 day. So I think that this is true. I typically store mine on the counter. I do put it in an airtight container, but I kind of think you can get more like 5 days out of it before anything's really going wrong with it. So I don't think any of my homemade bread has ever molded or anything like that before it's gone. I don't make like extended loaves. I just make like a standard loaf for like sandwich bread most of the time, just because that's what we eat in my house. I do occasionally make a very large batch of like dinner roll buns and things like that, but I will usually make those and then freeze them so that I can break them out whenever I want. So, freezer. So eat what you want of the fresh bread on day 1, then pack the rest off to the freezer for safekeeping. If you're likely to want to slice here and there, cut the bread into slices before freezing. I've not actually done this because I typically go through my bread way too fast to do that, which is why I typically make like 1 loaf at a time, and that way you kind of get more of that day 1 fresh kind of amazing texture, and you just get that warm, soft kind of feeling. So my personal liking is to have more softer bread, so I will make kind of a whole wheat bread as well as like a white bread that I've kind of made a recipe to my personal liking, and it really keeps well. So, and then the refrigerator, it seems counterintuitive, but storing your bread in the fridge will actually make it go stale much quicker. There is a complicated scientific process that happens involving the starch molecules degrading at chilled, not freezing temperatures. If warding off stale texture is your goal, stay away from the fridge. However, if you always store your bread in the fridge and have never noticed a difference, then do what makes you happy. I do not store my bread in the refrigerator, but to each their own, whatever you would like. So, okay. I think honestly the biggest thing on this is make sure when you go into a bread bag, whether you're making it at home or store-bought, that your hands are clean. That is the number one thing that is going to make your bread go moldy and yucky much faster. I feel like textural differences, you know, those bread is still delicious even on day 3. But if you get mold, it's over, so keep in mind those. Pro Toolbox. So you have like a dough hook. I do have a stand mixer, and it kind of depends on how I like to make the bread. Sometimes if I'm in a hurry, I'll just put it in the mixer and let it do a machine mix like that. But if I've got a little extra time, I'll do like the hand kneading, because it's just kind of relaxing. So then you just have a dough, like a rolling pin, in case you're making some more flatbreads or cinnamon rolls or something like that where you need to actually roll it. A scorer. Scoring the top of bread is one of my favorite parts. You can make some pretty fun designs. A paddle. I don't tend to use the paddle too much in bread making, only in certain kinds of things. A banneton basket for sourdough and stuff. A bench scraper, which are really helpful. A pastry cutter. I use that when I'm making like buttermilk biscuits. I tend to throw my sourdough starter, like the discard, into a lot of my recipes just because I think it adds a lot of extra flavor, especially as the sourdough starter has matured. So there are lots of different things that you can use, but honestly you don't need most of it. You need like a bowl, you need your hands, you need bread, water, you need flour, water, and salt, and maybe a little bit of sugar or butter if you'd like, but that's really it. You can do everything else by hand. And I should say time. You need a little bit of time, but most of it's downtime, just letting your dough rise. You're actually active, making the dough is pretty short. So weighing the dough in grams, I actually do this. I live in the US, but I like to do a lot of my cooking in the metric with grams and things, just because I find it much easier to get a consistent dough. This is a fun picture. It just kind of shows you all of the different stages of the dough. I do weigh my stuff, but sometimes it's really about like how your dough looks. Sometimes, you know, even though I've added the same amount of ingredients, depending on like the humidity level or whatever's going on in my house temperature wise, you might end up adding a little more water, a little more flour, because you're mainly trying to get your dough to look a certain way. So let's go through all the yummy pictures of bread. So breakfast in bread, that looks absolutely delicious. And he has some kind of waffle with like, not sure what that sauce is, but it looks really good. Some chives on there, some honey. Getting hungry. Ham and Swiss waffles. Oh, that sounds so good. Apple fold over coffee cake. So yummy. I really like the display pattern here. That's really beautiful. German chocolate scones. Ooh, yummy. Let's see, sticky orange monkey bread rolls. I like those little monkey breads. I have not done any of those, but they always look so neat the way they like twist them. Someday I'll try those as well. Maybe I'll try these sticky orange monkey bread rolls. Very interesting. A sheet pan buttermilk berry pancake. That sounds good too. I have some buttermilk and some berries that are kind of getting onto the end of their life, so maybe I'll make this tomorrow morning. That sounds good. Ham and Swiss waffles. Yummy. That was on that one page. Looked absolutely delicious. And then an English muffin. This is one that I am actually not that into. I don't really like English muffins. They're just not my thing. I don't like the texture so much. You know, their application is mostly breakfast, at least here. And I prefer to make like buttermilk biscuits. I used to make buttermilk biscuits in a restaurant when I was younger, and I don't use that recipe, but I still make them for breakfast often, and I love them. Breakfast pastries. Now these are like kryptonite. You see like the little cream cheese danishes and things. Oh, I love them so much. Anytime I see one, like I can't resist. I work in a laboratory and our pathologist brings in like donuts every single Friday. And every Friday I'm always like, don't do it, I'm not going to eat the donuts this week. But anytime any of these walk in, I just cannot stop myself. I will grab one every single time, and they're delicious. The upper crust. So this looks like more artisan style bread, like sourdough. Sourdough has that kind of classically round shape with kind of a thicker crust and lots of large holes in there. They are naturally leavened with yeast, wild yeast, and it's pretty delicious, I will say. I've only really made a few loaves just because I don't quite have all the proper equipment, or at least the stuff to make it easiest, but it's really good. And I like how there's different flavors you can add. You know, multigrain, olive, rosemary, apricot, and pistachio. That sounds good. I've made some like garlic and rosemary and those kinds of bread, and those are super good. Artisan yeast bread. I like how it kind of goes through the flavors, and I always love the way it looks so like wobbly, like the dough. It's like you just kind of like fold it on each other, kind of like really, it's just so like fluffy and wobbly. I like it. I like to brush breads with butter and things afterwards. So good. Muffins. So I make a really good blueberry sourdough muffin, and I absolutely love it. Every time I make them, they go away very quickly. Muffins to see here, muffins to see here. Peanut butter and jelly oat muffins. That sounds really good. Might try that sometime. Chocolate pumpkin swirl. I'm a sucker for anything pumpkin. baby seed zucchini. So I'm not actually like a huge zucchini fan, but I really like it in like a muffin. I don't know why it's okay in a muffin, but not other things, but zucchini muffins are really, really delicious. Sizing up. Muffins can be made into several sizes: mini, standard, and jumbo. If you want to change up the size of muffins in any of these recipes, you'll need to adjust the baking time accordingly. That seems standard. Almond coconut orange muffins. That sounds good too. I'm always like a sucker for almonds. That's my favorite kind of nut. Although I don't know, is almond a nut? Anyway, I like almonds. They are delicious. They are delicious. So delicious. Blueberry pistachio muffins, also delicious. Pistachio and blueberry is a really good combination. I really like it. Pistachio is kind of like, I don't know, I think it's a little bit sweet, but also it kind of has that more savory, nutty kind of flavor to it, which I think plays really good with the sweetness of the blueberry. Buttermilk banana bread muffins. So I also really love making banana bread. I will take bananas, because I love bananas. I will take them if they're getting a little on, I'll freeze them. And so that way if I want to make like something banana-y, it's always best when you have like an almost overripe banana when you're doing banana stuff, so you get a lot of that real solid like banana flavor. So then you can just take them out of the freezer and thaw them, and then you have a bunch of kind of super ripe bananas. Honey wheat raisin muffins, that sounds good. Standard but good. A blast from the past. I really love the art. Yeah, you know, the artistry of the pictures in some of these magazines. They're always so beautiful and well done. Celebrate the 100th anniversary of Better Homes and Gardens. So the dinner rolls that I make are actually from a family recipe book from like great grandma, and boy, I don't know what they were doing back then, but it was delicious. They're some of my favorite breads to make. It's always interesting to kind of try to convert those to more modern things, but they're so good. I absolutely love them. Grandma's drop donuts. Oh, those look really good. Like donut holes. That's one thing I've not really done yet, is donuts, and I'd like to make those sometime. Potato bread, and that's actually something I've not done either, but I have tasted it and it is really good. This just looks like it'd be good with like almost like a cinnamon butter or something. Oh, I love that. Golden wheat bread. That just seems like a really nice sandwich bread. Kind of a good crumb on it, and not a thick crust on top, but just enough. And then orange bow knots. Those look good. Delicious. I can already tell I'm gonna make a lot of the recipes out of here. is actually a bread I've also not made. It's rye bread. When you're doing like sourdough starters and stuff, doing it with rye flour apparently is really amazing. Yeast like a lot of protein content, and I guess it goes wild, but I have just a bread flour sourdough starter. So a no-knead dough. The story, no-knead dough was as much a thing in the 1940s as it is now. This dough featured in the February 1949 issue of Better Homes and Gardens. It was a multitasker. It could be shaped 3 different ways with 3 different fillings and filling flavors, are all modest and represent ingredients commonly used and favored during post-war era. That looks delicious, like a blueberry lemon or something. Caraway rye bread. I'm not a big fan of the caraway flavor, to be honest. Lemony fig coffee cake. Oh, I love coffee cake and strudels. So good. Variations of the rolls. That's the fun part about bread and pastries and things, is that you really just add the flavors that you like, you know, whatever you want on there. The milk bread. So I've actually read a lot about this milk bread stuff, but I haven't tried it. But it's so like fluffy looking. So like the bread recipe that I've kind of made that I like, I've kind of just adjusted things to my own liking. There's a fair amount of yeast in it because I really like just a really fluffy, soft, strong yeast flavor in my bread. And I'd be interested in this because this is the texture that I really like with bread. So like when I make those really delicious old style buns, this is the texture that kind of comes out. So I've been really curious about this, and someday I'll give it a try. Charcuterie, cuttery. I'm really bad at that word. Charcuterie, I think. You can tell me if I'm wrong in the comments. Okay. Pull apart breads. I've actually tried to make quite a few pull apart breads, but I honestly have not had much success with them. Someday I'll get it right. Yummy. Tacky milk bread. Cinnamon raisin swirl bread. Oh, I love that. I like making homemade cinnamon rolls. So good. Chocolate hazelnut milk bread rolls. So good there. Honey milk bread rolls. French style. I don't have like a pan big enough to make like a French style baguette, but I'd really like to try one of these days. I need one of those really long like Dutch ovens. Get that good crust on there. I really like French bread with like brie cheese. You get like the soft brie, and then oh, so delicious, so delicious. On the quick. Fine texture leavened with baking powder or soda. This I do not like. I do not like using a ton of baking powder or baking soda. I tend to feel like I can taste it. I can taste like the baking powder and the baking soda, and I really don't like those flavors. So I prefer to use breads that are leavened with yeast, just because I think it's just a much nicer flavor. apple fritter bread. Oh, yummy. So, I should say, I do feel like if you have enough of the acid to kind of counteract the baking soda, baking powder, then it tends, I can't taste it quite as much, but I don't know if maybe some recipes just don't have a good ratio, and it just ends up making the bread taste not very good. Bourbon banana bread. Now that sounds so good. I really like making banana bread. So yummy. Boston brown bread with cranberries. I'm not big on cranberries, but I know a lot of people like them. Pimento cheese beer bread. That's actually interesting. I don't know about that too much, but maybe it'd be good. Orange blueberry bread. Now that looks so yummy, guys. I'm getting myself all hungry. I had actually taken my yeast out last night, and I fed it because I was going to make a loaf of bread today, and I was so busy I didn't get around to it. So I'm going to have to make some tomorrow. So maybe this would be so yummy to put on the side. I can make 2 loaves. Raspberry tahini bread. Tip to finely crush the freeze-dried raspberries. Oh, sesame seed paste is tahini. That's kind of, I'm not sure about that. I feel like sesame seed, well no, that's not too strong. Maybe that'd be okay. Apricot cornmeal loaf with hatch chilies. That's interesting. More on sourdough. So I really like sourdough sandwich bread. You can get that really good sandwich bread. You can make like a really robust deli style sandwich or like a ham and cheese. Oh, so good. Sourdough focaccia bread. Also very good. Detroit style pizza. I really like making pizza crust. I'll make a sourdough pizza crust. And it's so good. I'll kind of make it like a few days before we make the pizzas. And then it just really gives it time to kind of develop some of those flavors. And it's so good. Sourdough pizza. This is kind of what it looks like. I love it. So good. And you can put anything you want on it. Pumpkin sourdough discard bread. I love pumpkin bread. Sourdough cardamom rolls. Caramel topping. I make like a homemade caramel sauce. And I love doing that. It's so good. And then all about your starter. Starters are really interesting little creatures. It took me a long time to kind of get mine going. But once you do, it's kind of indestructible almost. Highly worth it, I think, because it can really live in your fridge for a long time without actually being fed. So the beginning part's a struggle and you really have to be mindful and pay attention to it, but well worth it, I think, if you enjoy bread. But honestly, some of this stuff is way more complicated than it needs to be. I don't even measure when I'm feeding my starter for the most part. It's an eyeball thing. You just kind of like put some water in and flour until it kind of looks right, and that's it. Fall harvest cranberry pear strudel muffins. Oh, that's so good. I'd love to eat that right now. pumpkin sage white cheddar biscuits. Ooh. I'm actually not sure about that. I don't know about sage with pumpkin, but I don't know, maybe it's good. Smoky carrot cheddar skillet bread. Curried butternut squash roll. Now that sounds really good. Stalemate. Stale bread happens, yeah, you can make croutons. Although to be honest, my bread never goes stale because we always eat it. I only kind of make it as we need it, so. But you could totally do this. Very easy. Creme brulee French toast, yummy. And cheesy garlic bread loaf. I've made a lot of things like this. I think that's it, guys. The index. Alright guys, thank you for watching.